Welcome to Week in One, where we give you a wrap of the top stories and interviews featured on eNCA over the past 7 days. I'm Shridika Pillay. Here are this week's top stories. President Cyril Ramaphosa faces mounting pressure related to the Phala Phala report. Chris Hani's killer, Janus Walus, stabbed in prison. And the Hawks say that 68 statements have been filed relating to the investigation into the Phala Phala farm scandal. One of the breaking news stories that topped our bulletins is the release of the independent panel's report on the Phala Phala farm robbery, which is now in the hands of Parliament. Led by retired Chief Justice Sandile Ngcobo, the panel had to determine whether there's a case to impeach President Cyril Ramaphosa. Lawmakers will now have to wade through all 3 volumes of the report that was handed over to National Assembly Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula. eNCA senior reporter Aisha Ismail reports.
All 3 volumes of it. Members of Parliament packed the Imbizo Centre for the ceremonial handover of the independent panel's report. Retired Chief Justice Sandile Ngcobo was quick to point out the strict mandate the 3-member panel was given. And that was to determine if there's sufficient evidence to show that the President committed a serious violation of the Constitution or a serious misconduct.
Someone went on television and said, if this panel does not call the Hawks or call what, it would not have done its job. Let me make it quite clear and firmly. That's not our job. Our job was to interrogate the information that members of the Assembly saw fit to present to us. That's what the rules made by the National Assembly told and required us to do. We could not go beyond that.
Parliament will now convene on the 6th of December to debate the report.
The House will consider the report, its findings and recommendations, and adopt a resolution through a simple majority vote, whether a further action by the House is necessary or not.
Political parties are gearing up for a long, drawn-out process.
If there is a recommendation, if to say the President has got a case to answer, then the process will kick in where you have a similar committee which is sitting now, looking at the public protector's behavior and so on.
The concern there is that it may not be a wide enough scope to really get to the nub of what had happened on the President's farm. And that's why we've always held that an ad hoc committee is best, actually, so that it can have the powers needed for true investigation.
It was revealed that 5.3 million rand had been budgeted for the Section 89 panel to produce this report. Aisha Ismail, Parliament.
As part of our Phala Phala report focus, we looked at the report's main findings and recommendations that have been made public. The panel was tasked with investigating if there is prima facie evidence to institute an impeachment inquest against President Cyril Ramaphosa. Senior reporter Aviwe Mtila unpacks this.
The report makes clear that there are unexplained aspects to this whole scandal and that the President has not really given a detailed explanation of everything that happens.
President Cyril Ramaphosa's future hangs in the balance. This follows the damning findings of the Section 89 panel on the theft at Ramaphosa's Phala Phala farm robbery in 2020. The panel suggested that the President may have committed serious violations of the Constitution where, as a member of Cabinet, he may not undertake any other paid work. He may have also violated the PRECA Act by not reporting the Phala Phala farm theft to the relevant authorities, which is deemed a criminal offence.
The panel, in essence, said that on the balance of probabilities, the President's version is not correct, is untrue. So that's quite a serious finding to make.
The panel goes on to find misconduct by the President for acting in a way that is inconsistent with his office. Another serious find is the President exposing himself to a situation involving the risk of a conflict between his responsibilities and private interests.
the report as a whole paints a picture of the president that is really unflattering. Everything now depends on the National Assembly and the ANC MPs in the National Assembly, whether they will vote to proceed with a commission or an inquiry in the National Assembly. And that depends on the ANC leadership, who normally would instruct its MPs which way to vote.
When you juxtapose the recommendations of the high-level panel against the Constitution and the rules, you then come to a conclusion that President Ramaphosa is not affected by those rules that would disqualify somebody from being nominated to be a candidate for the top 6 positions.
The president maintains his innocence. Aviwem Tila, Johannesburg.
The Hawks can't give an update on their investigation into the Phala Phala farm theft scandal. All that can be mentioned at this stage is that more statements have been received. Earlier this week, the Elite Crime Fighting Unit outlined some of the milestones they've achieved in the previous quarter. eNCA's Heidi Jokos has more.
No significant update can be given regarding the Phala Phala farm matter involving President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Status of the Phala Phala matter, I think all what we can report is that, as you know, we are not reporting blow by blow on this investigation, but we can indicate that we have got now 68 statements that have been filed. Sometimes people ask me, and then I think we were around 50 or so. So at this stage, we have got 68 statements. We are continuing with the investigation. We have got professional investigators.
A worrying trend is most cases identified by the Hawks for this year include government officials.
We want to show that we are doing something about those in government offices, because they make it possible for those outside to be able to commit corruption.
Despite the challenges, the Hawks have recorded the highest number of arrests.
It is encouraging to report that the DPCI has grown to 52% from the last time that we have reported that we are operating below 50%. The process of capacitating the DPCI is continuing, and as we speak, we are busy selecting candidates to fill 290 posts.
The same goes for the Steinhoff matter. The Hawk says the matter is still under investigation. A new Deputy National Head of Hawks has also been appointed. Lieutenant General Sipesihle Nkosi is said to have extensive experience in fraud and commercial crime, with the hope that more matters will be tackled. Heidi Jokos in Pretoria.
Coming up after the break, we feature some of the groundbreaking interviews and discussions done by our anchors this week. Welcome back to Week in One. I'm Shurdika Pillay. Racism has once again reared its ugly head. This time, a controversial voice clip by Benoni resident Belinda Magor has gone viral.
It seems that with the emergence, ever so often with the emergence of such incidents, we're probably reminded that the reconciliation project is far from completion.
Yes, and we're just going into, within the next couple of weeks, we'll be celebrating or reflecting on the 16th of December, which our democratic government instituted as a day of reconciliation. But we're far from that project because there hasn't been follow-through by successive governments on it, and the institutions charged with doing this indeed paid from the fiscus to ensure the kinds of social cohesion, the kinds of nation building in order to underpin this democracy, create stability and move forward together is simply not there.
So what needs to be done? Because when you speak of recidivism in this instance here, one would have thought that with the likes of Vicky Momberg having been sentenced. I mean, she spent 2 years. It was a 3-year sentence to jail, once suspended. One would have thought that would have been a deterrent, but it wasn't.
It's significant, I think, that we've had the Mombergs and now Megor, and previously, a few years back, we had Sparrow.
Yes.
These are all white women, and some, I don't want to generalize about it, but it's significant that if women can harbor this kind of sentiment, then it says that those who suck at their breasts, those who they give rise to, those who are around them, learn this kind of behavior. It's tragic and ought to be stopped. It's also significant that we don't have our education system addressing what we've confronted, the horrors of the past, so that in the present, there's not an infection of this kind of bigotry, and that we don't continue to inherit it in the future.
Eldorado Park residents say they are struggling to get police to follow up on crimes. That's after Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi promised to wage war on crime in the area. eNCA anchor Tumelo Mototwane spoke to Deriline James, the founder of the Yellow Ribbon Foundation and an anti-drug activist.
Deriline, in your opinion, where is the root problem? Is it deeper than what we see on the streets, where there are probably syndicates running, probably even multinational syndicates running drugs in our communities, and this obviously needing the assistance of the police at this stage?
The problem is really deeply rooted, and there's many contributors to what we see happening and spiraling out today. You know, poverty plays a huge role. Unemployment plays a huge role. You know, the lack of resources from SAPS, the lack of will from government. You know, it's going to take an integrated approach for us to address substance use disorder in our country. We cannot just have, you know, SAPS coming in and SAPS doing raids and that's where it ends. We need to clamp down. We need to tighten up at our borders. We need additional social workers that actually understands what they are dealing with. We need, you know, our hospitals to actually understand that drug addiction is a medical condition. You know, it's a mental condition. We need to empower families and communities to take charge. What you see happening now to many is a lucrative business, you know, where these drug dens are operating in our communities, and they are basically even supplying food stuff and groceries to communities who don't have, you know. So that's the problem that we have. Last week, we also tried to go out and speak to some of these drug dealers, you know, to make them aware of what they are doing. And you find resistance from the actual community itself. You know, and I asked myself, why is this happening? Until later on, I spoke to some residents of the specific area, and they said, you know what, because he actually provides bread on a daily basis for these people. So what alternatives are we giving for people that is actually doing this as a business? That's where we need to start.
What do the drug dealers themselves say? Are there any plans whatsoever to stop this? Should there be alternatives? What's their response to you directly?
You know what, every time we visit the home, because we've realized, you know what, we cannot keep fighting these people. It's just a vicious circle. And you sort of arrest the one and 5 others, you know, pitch up. And when we addressed the one drug dealer last week, when we explained to them and we said to them, you know, you making money and you telling us what else are you supposed to do to provide for your family? What about the many moms that are being murdered? What about the mothers killing their children? What about the chaos and, you know, the hurt and that this is causing in our community? And like I said, he said to me, why are you coming to me first? What about the others? And we said to him, where do we start? We've got to start somewhere. You know, and when we go to them, it's why to me first? What alternatives are there for me? What am I supposed to do? There's no jobs. Those are the types of responses we are getting.
Will President Cyril Ramaphosa step aside? That's the big question on South Africans' minds this week. Parliament's Section 89 independent panel submitted its report into the robbery at Ramaphosa's Phala Phala farm on Wednesday. Professor JJ Tabane took the bull by the horns this week when he spoke to ANC-NEC member Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma about the scandal.
What, in your view, would it mean if the president has a case to answer, right? In your view, what should then happen?
Well, I think the president would have to just step aside, answer the case. Yes.
Step aside now as president of the ANC or as state president or both?
I think both. So that the case must then be, because you remember the president has influence in everything.
Yes.
So if he has a case to answer, then it's better if he is not there when people are asking the questions and
you think he must step aside now, not wait for him to be charged first, or wait for whatever inquiry will follow to establish his guilt or innocence?
Well, the step aside, if you go and read the step aside that was in the 54th conference, I think he should step aside.
Right away?
I think so. I mean, the judges have said there's a case to answer. It's not coming from me or you, but it's coming from a panel led by a judge appointed by Parliament.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you think are the implications for the ANC conference in 3 weeks if in fact he has a case to answer? Do you think that he should automatically be disqualified from running? If you talk to me frankly about it.
Well, look at the rules that the guidelines that President Khalima's committee has. They do say you have to be vetted to see that you have no issues that are putting the ANC into disrepute or whatever. I mean, I can't quote them verbatim, but they say something to that effect.
So you think it's the end of the road for him, in your view?
To road to where?
To Nazareth.
Well, the rules, if the rules are applied fairly and
You think that sort of opens the race wider now, in your view? Because the reality is he got more nominations than all of you by far.
Well, that's fine. I won't debate that. He may have got. But I at the beginning of my talk, I did say there were objective and subjective
factors.
Stay tuned to Week in One. We bring you more up next. Welcome back to Week in One. I'm Shridika Pillay. On Tuesday, news broke that Chris Hani's killer, Janus Walus, was stabbed in prison by another inmate at the Kgosi Mampuru prison. Walus has been behind bars since the assassination of Hani in 1993 and was due to be released on parole later this week. Senior reporter Aviwe Mtila filed this report from outside the prison in Pretoria.
Behind these prison walls in the medical wing, Janus Walus, the man who killed struggle stalwart Chris Hani, is currently receiving treatment. Our correctional services says he's in a stable condition, but what does this mean for his parole release this Thursday? The SACP says it's forging ahead with a march to this very institution on Wednesday, condemning the Concourt decision last week to grant parole. The Correctional Services Ministry, for its part, says it's eagerly awaiting the outcomes of the investigations that are to be conducted by the Department of Correctional Services. Now, we do know, of course, that Janus Walus was stabbed by one of the inmates at Kgosi Mampuru at around 4:30 on Tuesday afternoon, I beg your pardon. And we do know that that inmate is now currently awaiting to be questioned by the department itself before further information is given out to the public. I'm Aviwe Mtila, outside the Kgosi Mampuru prison in Pretoria.
The Nelson Mandela Bay region has been battling a devastating drought for the past 6 years. Now the metro and its residents face another challenge, this time runaway wildfires. Gusty winds and hot conditions pose a serious threat to the efforts of fire and rescue services to contain the blaze. eNCA's Ronald Masinda has more.
A bird's eye view of the extent of some of the damage the fire has caused. And a sigh of relief for some residents who say the situation could have been a lot worse.
It's my fear because we have houses here and there are a lot of trees here. And our houses is next to the trees.
We're trying to help out all the people that's fighting the fire. We are bringing all our water from our water tanks.
Helicopters throwing water from the sea have been working around the clock to help put out the fires, with some light aircraft pilots also monitoring the worst affected areas.
All fires are bad, so it's hard to say there's not one worse and one. They're all bad, especially when the fire is approaching people in formal settlements.
There's some good news. The fire around most parts of the metro has been contained, but officials are concerned that it may flare up again.
The gift of the givers is also assisting those who are part of the rescue operations, as well as residents who are in need for help.
We started evacuation immediately with the disabled people. Not everyone wanted to leave their houses.
The non-profit organization also says at least 35 fighters from St. Francis Bay will be deployed to Gqeberha on Thursday to assist. Ronald Masinda, Gqeberha.
Moving to this now, the last kicks of a dying horse. That's how Tsegofatso Pule's loved ones have described her boyfriend and killer's failed bid at having his conviction and sentence overturned. This ironically while the country is commemorating 16 days of activism. Ntutuko Shoba is serving a life sentence after he was found guilty of masterminding Pule's murder in 2020. eNCA senior reporter Slindelo Masikane has more.
Once again, Ntutuko Shoba was not in court to hear the outcome of his application for leave to appeal his conviction and sentence. Last week, his lawyer argued that a different court may have a different view of the evidence by Muzgaise Malepane, who confessed that he was contracted by Shoba to kill Tsegofatso Pule. But Judge Stuart Wilson isn't convinced.
There is no sufficiently compelling reason to grant leave to appeal. To do so would be no more than an exercise in judicial vanity, and one which would only lengthen the dull, dragging agony that these proceedings have no doubt imposed on Miss Pule's family and friends.
Pule's family was visibly relieved that Shoba will remain behind bars.
He can appeal until he turns blue. I don't see any court in this reasonable country of ours granting Mr. Shoba his leave to appeal. We wait for now to see what his next stance will be.
I take it as it's the kick of a dying horse. Yeah, I'm expecting him to do something, but knowing, as Uncle has said it, there is no way. The justice system of this country, it has shown that they know what they're doing, and it's not going to fail us. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever.
The NPA has welcomed the judgment.
We argued that the evidence that we placed before court was of sound nature, and though we knew that the defense would want to tap into the credibility of one of our witnesses.
While Shoba continues serving his sentence, Pule's family says their only wish now is for Malepane to show them where he shot her so they may be able to collect her spirit. Slindelo Masigane, Johannesburg.
While President Cyril Ramaphosa faces mounting political waves caused by the Phala Phala report, the ANC has announced its NEC nominations ahead of the party's elective conference next month. eNCA's Pulele Chwiti Jones compiled this report.
The ANC has just announced its branch nominations for the National Executive Committee ahead of the party's 55th National Conference this month. The top names of those who could make it to the list include Sihle Zikalala, Malusi Kigaba, Stella Ndebeni, and Mduduzi Manana. The party, however, says the names are not final and that those who are facing criminal charges or don't meet the party's vetting requirements could be disqualified.
And the vetting and process will, of course, disqualify some of the comrades who don't qualify in terms of the rules. That process is ongoing. Yeah. But here, what we are announcing it's a reflection of the nominations as they came from the branches. Yes.
The party has also admitted that it's encountering serious challenges with balancing numbers in its NEC. This could see the 50-50 gender parity threshold not prevailing.
Yeah, the 50-50 gender is a challenge, really, and try as we did, clearly we haven't succeeded. However, the Constitution, it's imperative. The Constitution dictates that the final 86 members elected will have 50-50. There's no question about it. It's a constitutional imperative.
The party says it will be implementing strict measures to make sure only credible leaders make it to the party's highest decision-making body. The final vetted list is expected to be published soon. Pule Lichiti-Jones in Johannesburg.
And that's it for us at Week in One. From myself and the team, have a great weekend.